Hello there and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is L24 Midnight News, and coming up next in our news program. President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, held a meeting today at the headquarters of the presidency with the Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel. He is making a friendly and working visit to Algeria. Greece's foreign minister called off first leg of a visit to Libya on Thursday, refusing to disembark from his plane after landing in the capital of Tripoli. The Mexican President Andrés Manuel López reaffirmed in a press conference full support for the Sahrawi people and their right to self-determination and independence. Russia and Ukraine have agreed to extend an agreement to allow grain exports from Ukraine ports through a safe corridor in the Black Sea. Hello again and welcome. I'm your host Abdurrahim Kashour, and those were today's top stories. First, from Algeria, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, held a meeting today at the headquarters of the presidency with the Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel. Is making a friendly working visit to Algeria. First, the Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune on Thursday announced on Thursday an important decisions that Algeria had taken toward Cuba, including granting it a solar power plant and cancelling debt interest toward this country. This came in a joint statement with his Cuban counterpart after talks that brought them together at the headquarters of the Algerian presidency.
تقرر في اجتماعنا هذا أن نخفف الوضع الاقتصادي على كوبا، نلغي كل الفوائد للمديونية وسنؤجل المديونية إلى حين. كذلك الجزائر تهدي إلى شقيقة كوبا محطة توليد كهرباء بالطاقة الشمسية. كذلك نعيد تمويل الذي انقطع بالمحروقات لنسمح لجمهورية كوبا لإعادة تفعيل محطات توليد الكهرباء ومحاربة الانقطاعات الحالية في الكهرباء. اتفقنا كذلك على صناعة الأدوية معا. اتفقنا على إنشاء عدد لازم بالنسبة للشركات المختلطة كوبية. نمشي معا في كذلك صناعة تلقيح بالنسبة للأمراض الإفريقية وغير الإفريقية.
Same line of thought, Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel praised the historical ties that bind Algeria to Cuba and two countries' intention to consolidate the relationship between them.
The visit we are making today to Algeria, a brotherly country, is motivated by many reasons. In particular, to get to know the heroic Algerian people and to strengthen relations with the current leadership in the light of historical ties, as well as solidarity and friendship that bind our two countries and our two peoples for more than 60 years.
And to have a better understanding over this Cuban visit to Algeria, I'm joined live via Skype platform by Hamoud Salhi, an associate dean at California University. Mr. Hamoud, hello over there.
Hi, Abdurrahim. Thank you so much for the invitation.
I appreciate it. Mr. Hamoud, what is your reading toward this Cuban visit to Algeria, and what does it represent in terms of geopolitics?
So let's begin by the personal, which is really very amazing because these two countries, the relationship between presidents, all the presidents Algeria has had has been excellent, and it has been done with gifts and all wonderful things. Just as an example, the late President Houari Boumediene smoked his cigars free from Cuba. He got a gift from Fidel Castro at the time, who initially was against against him when Boumediene took over. During another era, we had also strong visit Fidel Castro to Algeria, and he was very well received. In early 70s, there was the meeting that gathered the leader of the Vietnamese Revolution, the Cuban Revolution, and Algeria, and they gave a speech, and all filled with friendship. This is as historical as it was in the past. It underscores the true solidarity that exists between the Cuban and the Algerian people. This is it derives from the historical relationship that is built against anti-colonialism and continued through the years by working in that sphere. Strategically, this is a very, very good step into enlisting the Cuban support as Algeria embarks on getting accepted to the BRICS by leading a role in the Arab League to help bring unity to the and solidarity and support for the Palestinian cause, particularly with Algerians' goal to push for the recognition of the United Nations of the Palestinians as a full member state. The Cuban support will be there. There's another issue, it has to do with economic relations, and where the two countries benefit strongly, and the Algerians moving forward with easing the burden on the economic front, the loans, and offering a solar plant is in that direction. This is all good, and it's amazing on a personal and a strategic level as well.
Sorry to cut you train of thought. Coming to this point, Mr. Hamoud, the President of the Republic, stated a piece of vital policy that Algeria had taken toward Cuba, including granting it a solar power plant and cancelling debt interest. But how this could serve our interest if we talk about the bigger picture?
And that's really where the issue is. The big picture, this is an excellent thing. But also, let's not forget the Cuban offered also aid to Algeria when it was in need. The hospitals, the doctors that came to Algeria, the support that the Cuban landed during the revolution. There is a historical thing here. And just say almost the same thing with the Chinese, or the Algerians are very truthful to their friends, and Cuba is one of them. So from that perspective, this serves the two countries very well, and it sends strong signals that Algeria means business. It doesn't forget its old friends, and more than anything else, it is fully aware of what's happening in Cuba, the burden on its economy due to the natural disaster that occurs. So removing the interest and looking for a plan, a better financial plan to pay for this for the loan, makes it a very, very good step. It allows Cuba to move forward without running into financial institutions like the IMF or other institutions that will put historical, that will put some burdens on them, like paying high interest and so on and so forth. So this is very good.
Mr. Hamoud Salhim, you joined me live from USA. Thank you ever so much for this intervention.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Now, staying in the same line of thoughts, Algeria and Cuba celebrate the 60th anniversary of establishment of their relations that go back in history and which have known as a shared struggle for justice causes such as Palestinian cause and the cause of the Sahrawi people. Nabil Khazini.
Between Algeria and Cuba, a relation engraved deeply in the historical past of shared struggles to support just causes in all parts of the world. Memories, stories, and extraordinary moments link the two friendly countries that, despite the long geographical distance between them, remained so close. In 1962, Algeria and Cuba initiated diplomatic relations that have kept to grow and advance. Since then, both countries maintained their ties, and leaders from both sides exchanged visits. A series initiated by President Ahmed Ben Bella, who made a symbolic visit to Cuba following Algeria's independence. It was a symbol of friendship and close ties. Same images of warm welcome were repeated when Il Comandante Che Guevara, The famous revolutionist visited Algiers. He landed on February 24, 1965, on the soil of Algeria, where he delivered his historic speech. Another icon of the Cuban Revolution who has always supported Algeria has also walked on this land, or the capital of the revolutionaries. No matter how difficult the moments of his country's history, Cuba, Fidel Castro, extended a friendly hand to Algeria. The former Algerian president, Houari Boumediene, was warmly welcomed in the Cuban capital, Havana. It was there where he declared that Cuba should be an example for all of Latin America and all third world countries. Like the past, like today, Algeria and Cuba remained close and continued to develop their close cooperation for the aim of mutual growth.
I'm from the historical background of Cuba and Algeria. Now, in the term of economy, the Sonatrach Group and the Italian Eni have proceeded today with inauguration of laboratory specialized in solar energy, solar lab, as well as the laying of the first stone of a second 10-megawatt photovoltaic solar power plant, southern province of Ouargla. Through these projects, Sonatrach works to consolidate the national production of renewable solar energy and diversify energy sources in order to reduce the carbon footprint resulting from its activities.
The historical relationship between the two groups has existed for 40 years, and we welcome the important decision of Eni regarding the recovery of the shares of the Berkini Basin project. We rely heavily on its expertise as well as the technological development of the group has achieved in the energy sector.
During the press conference, the general manager of Eni, Claudio Disclasi, said that Algeria had contributed significantly to filling Italian gas reserves in an anticipation of winter season, adding that gas storage rate reached 95%.
Algeria has contributed greatly to filling Italian gas reserves in anticipation of the winter season. The gas storage rate has reached 95%, and it is considered positive for passing the winter.
To the Middle East, the Palestinian Health and the Ministry and civil emergency officials said that at least 21 people were killed and several others injured when a fire broke out in a building where residents attended a party in Gaza Strip on Thursday. Footage circulated on social media and witnesses said that the whole residential building caught fire in Jabila refugee camp in northern Gaza Strip, sending flames and smoke from the site. During his participation in the celebration of Algeria Embassy in Tripoli marking 68th anniversary of Algerian Revolution, the head of Libyan National Unity Government, Abdelhamid Dbeiba, praised the role played by Algeria in order to enable the Libyans to emerge their endeavors in holding comprehensive national elections.
الجزائر اليوم هي البلد الجار.
Algeria today is the neighboring country that recognizes the justice of the cause of the Libyans in a future that is not disturbed by ranks, wars, or division, and which works in regional and international forums to confirm the choice of election for the Libyan people and for the state of Libya.
The head of Greek diplomacy, Nikos Dandias, arrived at Libyan airport Thursday morning, but then refused to disembark and meet his counterpart, Najla al-Manqoush. He then went to Benghazi and met Khalifa Haftar, the leader of the armed forces in the east of the country. Tensions have been increasing in the Mediterranean following a controversial preliminary maritime and gas deal between Turkey and the Tripoli administration. Tunisia and Libya signed an agreement that includes the establishment of a joint free economic zone at Ras Jdir border. Crossing the agreement also including lifting restrictions on citizens of two countries in addition to cooperation and trade exchange and facilitating the procedures for entering goods of foreign origin into Libya through Tunisian ports. Colombian Ministry of Foreign Affairs announced yesterday the opening of a new embassy of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic in the capital of Colombia, Bogota. The decision occurs 100 days after the constitution of the new Colombian government, which raises relations between the two countries to their highest level. The Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador reaffirmed in a press conference full support for the Sahrawi people and their right to self-determination and independence. The Mexican president highlighted this by saying, "We are pursuing the same policy to support people's right to self-determination, and Mexico has recognized the Sahrawi Arab republics since 1979. Lebanese MPs again failed to appoint a head of state in the country without a president since November 1st, as the political statement worsens in Lebanon in the midst of economic collapse. Parliament is deeply divided between the camp opposed to Hezbollah, who supports a candidate, Michel Maouad, and that of the powerful pro-Iranian party, which is blocking his election. Neither side has a clear majority. The United States and its allies criticized Russia in the United Nations Security Council over missile attacks on Ukraine. In a meeting a day after a missile that NATO said it was a stray fired by Ukraine's air defenses crashed into Poland. Military alliance NATO and member Poland said that missile was probably a stray fired by Ukraine air defenses and not a Russian strike, easing international fears that the war could widen.
On November 15, at around 3:30 p.m., during yet another wave of massive missile strikes by Russian forces against civilian critical infrastructure in the whole of Ukraine, including the immediate vicinity of the territory of Poland, 2 Polish citizens lost their lives in the Polish village of Przewodów, situated around 5 kilometers from the Polish-Ukrainian border. The apparent cause of their death was the explosion from the missile that fell on the location, which has no military background whatsoever.
I want to start by noting the tragic explosion that killed 2 people in Poland near the Ukrainian border. We extend our deepest condolences to the loved ones of those Polish citizens who were killed. As President Biden told President Duda last night, we stand with Poland in this difficult moment. While we still don't know all the facts, we do know one thing. This tragedy would never have happened but for Russia's needless invasion of Ukraine and its recent missile assaults against Ukraine's civilian infrastructure.
Kremlin accused Kiev of shifting the goalposts regarding possible peace talks, saying it could not imagine engaging in public negotiations and called on Washington to push Kiev toward diplomacy. In a briefing call with reporters, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said that the United States was capable of taking Russia's concerns into account and could encourage Kiev to return to the negotiating table if it wanted it to.
They say they want negotiations, but public ones. It is difficult to imagine public negotiations in general. Public negotiations don't exist, especially public negotiations of such level. What is clear is that the Ukrainian side doesn't want any negotiations. The special military operation goes on, and its goals must be achieved.
A deal aimed at easing global food shortages by facilitating Ukraine's agricultural exports from its southern Black Sea ports was extended for 120 days on Thursday. The agreement, initially reached in July, created a protected sea transit corridor and was designed to alleviate global food shortages by allowing exports to resume from 3 ports in Ukraine.
I want to express my deep commitment and the commitment of the UN to do everything possible for the smooth implementation of this agreement in Istanbul by the Joint Coordination Center, and also to remove the remaining obstacles to the unimpeded exports of Russian food and fertilizers, essential to avoid a food crisis next year too.
In USA, Republicans were projected to win a majority in the U.S. House of Representatives on Wednesday, setting the stage for years of divided government as President Joe Biden's Democratic Party held control of the Senate. Hussein Burkan.
More than a week after the polling stations for the midterm election closed, the Republican Party can confirm that it recovers the House of Representatives 4 years later. The wait for the count has been very long, but the Republican victory in the 27th District of California has been able to ratify the majority in this chamber of the conservative formation.
Well, good evening. I'm proud to announce the era of one-party Democrat rule in Washington is over. Washington now has a check and balance. The American people have a say in their government. And this new Republican leadership team is ready to get to work to put America back on the right track.
President Joe Biden, who will have trouble during the remaining 2 years of the Democratic mandate, expressed his readiness to work with the opposition Republicans.
I'm prepared to work with my Republican colleagues. The American people have made clear, I think, that they expect Republicans to be prepared to work with me as well.
The third figure in the line of succession to the presidency of the United States, Speaker Nancy Pelosi renounced the leadership of the Democrats, saying that she wants to make way for a new generation.
And with great confidence in our caucus, I will not seek re-election to Democratic leadership in the next Congress. For me, the hours come for a new generation to lead the Democratic caucus that I so deeply respect. And I'm grateful that so many are ready and willing to shoulder this awesome responsibility.
With this majority, Republicans will be able to stop Democratic legislative agenda and increase investigation into the Biden administration. And with Democrats succeeding to maintain minimum majority in the Senate, both chambers are in the hands of different parties, even by small margins, setting the stage for 2 years of divided government, which will have several consequences.
Enough more international news. Let's follow this roundup by Mrab Al-Ayour.
Brustinov's suggestions that he should boycott the World Cup that will start in Qatar in a few days, French President Emmanuel Macron said on Thursday sports should not be politicized. This follows some rights groups and politicians who have called for a diplomatic boycott, claiming political leaders should not travel to Qatar for the event. Interior ministers from G7 countries met in the German town of Eltville on Thursday to discuss a range of topics, including the war in Ukraine, countering violent extremism and terrorism, and human trafficking, among others. Ministers attended as well as representatives of the European Union and other international bodies and organizations. 6 people were killed and 30 injured on Thursday when a large gas tube exploded in a residential area in northern Iraqi city of Sulaymaniyah. Firefighters are still searching for people missing from the collapsed houses, and health officials said the death toll might rise. According to authorities, 5 people, including the top security official of the central Mexican state of Aguascalientes, died in a helicopter crash Thursday. It's worth mentioning that the police department stated that preliminary information suggested the crash was an accident.
Vulnerable and conflict-affected countries are suffering from severe and devastating climate crisis. They are calling on world leaders to find solutions and ensure access to adequate climate finance in challenging environments.
As the UN Climate Conference enters its second week, much work is still to be done to outturn the divisions between the rich nations and the poor ones clamoring for aid. Vulnerable nations are suffering from the acceleration of the climatic catastrophes. South Sudan, for example, is facing record-breaking rains and flood for a 4th consecutive year. While half of the country is suffering severe droughts, the other half is experiencing extreme flooding, contributing to high food insecurity.
All our food is ruined. You can see my sorghum crops. The floods bring hunger because they all take all our food. If we have no food, how can we survive?
The surface area of land permanently submerged underwater has tripled, and an already dire food security situation exacerbated, leaving 2.9 million people at risk of starvation.
Countries in the Middle East, namely Syria and Iraq, are suffering a devastating crisis that could fuel more turmoil in the region as communities fight over dwindling water resources. Syria saw its worst drought in more than 70 years in 2021, with harvests across the country hit hard.
There's a drought affecting the wells, and water in the Euphrates has reached a very low level. Before, we used to get water from a very close distance, but now the water is 400 meters away.
The prolonged drought in the Middle East has also hit Iraqi farmers who are unable to find water for their farmlands. According to experts, Iraq has been devastated by lower rainfall in addition to the decades of conflicts.
As a result of water shortage, there are social problems. Water scarcity causes disputes between people from neighboring areas. Those at the downstream want water, and they consider that those upstream took the water. But in reality, it is water scarcity that caused these problems.
The climate emergency is having serious and devastating consequences, especially for people living in conflict situations and those who don't have access to basic health care. Thus, world leaders are called on to ensure the support for vulnerable countries to adapt to a changing climate.
Ending up with sport, Real Madrid striker Karim Benzema and Barcelona captain Alexia Putellas claimed the Men's and Women's Player of the Year awards at the Globe Soccer Awards in Dubai on Thursday evening. It wasn't only Benzema crowned from Madrid's side, but it was a successful night for Real Madrid in general, with Carlo Ancelotti winning Coach of the Year and the club itself picking up the Best Men's Club of the Year. Liverpool forward Mohamed Salah received the biggest cheer of night when he was announced as Fans Player of the Year.
It's an honor for me to receive this award. This is the second time. The first time was in 2014 when we won the Decima, and this time to win the Champions League number 14. It was a fantastic season, an unbelievable season, unforgettable.
To be voted best defender of all time is something incredible, very special. This represents the work, effort, and sacrifice during my career.
Well, you guys put more pressure on me now, but I think it's always great. The most important part of the football is the fans. So you win that award voted by fans is something great. So I'm something grateful for.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. For more updates, you can follow our social media platform. And for now, good night.